Hey, let's do the Gemara Moed Cotton over here. We're up to on page. We're up to on page Beis Amud Beis, page 2b. Okay. Zog the Gemara Tana. The Gemara is going to explain now the Mishnah that we learned in the Mishnah. The Mishnah said a leniency. We learned that even though one is not permitted to do work on Chol HaMoed, however, if it's a situation with the person is experiencing a loss, the Chachamim were lenient and they allowed him to water. So we learned, for example, the Mishnah said that mashkin beis hashlochim, that you can water a field that needs water to be watered besides what comes down from the rain. So if it needs water, it's called a beis hashlochim. You can do it on Chol HaMoed, provided the stipulations, because it's a loss. If you're not going to water the field on Chol HaMoed, there's going to be a loss. We also learned in the same Mishnah, Uba Shvi'is, that the same thing is true on Shvi'is. Shvi'is is the 7th year. On the 7th year, the law is you're not allowed to work the fields. It's called the year of Shemitah. So if it is, however, a beis hashlochim, if it is a field that needs the water, so you can also water it on the 7th year, on the Shemitah year, you can water it. The Gemara, this is a quote from the Mishnah. What the Gemara wants to understand is, how could it possibly be allowed to do watering the field on Shavuos? The Gemara thinks that should be prohibited, because on Shavuos there is no, there shouldn't be a leniency. On Chol HaMoed, where the issue is that we don't want you to exert yourself because of the Yom Tov, because of Chol HaMoed. So we understand if in a case that there is a loss, the Chachamim wanted to be lenient. But on Shavuos, if you're not allowed to water, why should you be allowed to water a beis hashlochim? Let's look inside. We understand why, when it comes to Chol HaMoed, that we allow you is because mishum tirchahu, because the issue is because you are troubling yourself. And since it's a place where there is a loss, if you're not going to water the beis hashlochim, there's going to be a loss. So the Chachamim allowed it. So it makes sense over there. Rashi, let's look at Rashi. Bishloim Moed, we understand why the holiday you're allowed to on Chol HaMoed, because mishum tirchahu, it's because if it's a trouble. If it's a place where there's a loss, the rabbi is allowed. So Rashi explained. For this reason, we're allowed to water on Chol HaMoed. Why? The whole prohibition of doing work is because we don't want you to trouble yourself. On Chol HaMoed, to work and to go water, that's a trouble. But if we're talking about a situation where there is a loss, The Chachamim allowed it. V'chol mokoim peseda shor rabbanon. Wherever there's a loss, the Chachamim were lenient, and they allowed you limitrach b'choyle shel moed b'mokoim peseda, to trouble yourself on choyle moed if it's a place where there is a loss, k'de parshin on le'il, as we explained before. Elo shvi'is. But let's understand the second case, Shemitah, the 7th year. What is the problem? Over there on Shvi'is, the problem with watering on Shvi'is is not because of tircha, not because we don't want you to trouble. On Shvi'is, there's a prohibition. The Torah says the field must rest. What happens when you water the field? We had before two opinions. One opinion said that that is like sowing the field when you are watering the field. The other one, it says it's like you're plowing the field. But either way, whatever we consider the job of watering the field, let it be Bein lemanda omar mishum zereya, whether according to the opinion that says when you're watering the field, it's like sowing the field. Ubein lemanda omar mishum chodesh, or it's according to the manda omar, who says that it is mishum chodesh, that it is because that you're plowing. Those are things that are prohibited on Shvi'is. We know sowing on Shvi'is, sowing on Shemitah is prohibited, and plowing on Shvi'is on the 7th year is permissible, prohibited. So, how could you allow to water the field? Because watering it is either sowing or it's plowing. Rashi. What does it mean? What are the two opinions? The pligi Rabbi Yosef Li'il. We find there was a machlokes earlier, a disagreement between Rabbi and Rabbi Yosef. The mashke mayin lizroim, when a person is watering the field for the seed, you're watering it, so you're making it grow. The Chad Omar Mishum Chodesh, one of them said that the prohibition is Chodesh, that you're plowing. The Chad Omar, and one said that the prohibition is Mishum Zeireya. So in either event, whatever you are doing, whether we consider you're plowing when you're watering it or you're sowing the ground, is Zriya v'chadisha b'shvi'is mishari. Is it then permissible to sow or to plow during the 7th year? Is it then permissible? We're not allowed to plow or we're not allowed to sow on the 7th year. How could we allow you to water a Beis HaShalochim? How could the Mishnah say that mashkin Beis HaShalochim b'moed u'b'shvi'is, also on Shvi'is? How could we do that? Because you're either plowing or you're sowing. Zriya v'charisha b'shvi'is mi shari, is sowing and plowing in the 7th year, is it then permissible? Rashi explains. Charisha b'shvi'is mishori, is it then permissible? Honafka, but we learn it out. There's a pasuk that says, "Nebachorish ubakotzir tishbois." This is a pasuk which is actually talking about Shabbos, and over there we're saying that on Shabbos one needs to rest from plowing and from cutting. That's talking about Shabbos. But the Gemara says, why would we have to say plowing and cutting on Shabbos? It's part of the 39 malachas. Why does the Torah have to mention that? And we say, well, It's not talking about Shabbos. We don't need it for Shabbos, but it's talking about the seventh year, that on Shemitah, one is not allowed to plow and one is not allowed to cut. Damrinon, over there we say about this pasuk, Im eine inyan l'Shabbos, she'ene tzorich. We don't need the pasuk to tell you that you need to rest if you can't plow, you can't cut on the Shabbos. We don't need the pasuk. Shari saying it tzorich. We don't need it. Why? Shari kvar nemar kol malachat. It says already you can't do any work, so we know you can't plow, you can't sow on Shabbos. So why does the pasuk tell you don't plow, rest from plowing and cutting? But that's a teneyu inyan l'shvi. So that's why we're going to put it for shvius, and we're going to say that in the seventh year you can't plow and you can't cut on the seventh year. The question that the Gemara is saying is that Rashi is just telling you the pasuk from where we know it. Basically, the Gemara is asking, sowing and plowing are not permitted on this seventh year on Shvi'is. So how could we allow you to go ahead and water the field in a field, Beis HaShalachim, to water it because it needs the water? Mele, when we talk about Anchala Moed, in which the whole problem is the troubling yourself working. So we're saying that if there is a loss, then the Chachamim were lenient. It's a Beis HaShalachim, they allowed you. But when we talk about watering the field on the seventh year on Shemitah, how could we allow that? If you water your field while there is seed in there, you're either making it grow or you're turning over the ground, you're making it plowing, the two opinions before. And we know that on Shvi'is, you're not allowed to, because even though we don't have a pasuk by Shvi'is itself that you can't plow or you can't cut, but the pasuk is by Shabbos, and since it's not necessary by Shabbos, we say im eine inyan li Shabbos, because we don't need it, because we already know you can't do any work. So we say it applies to Shvi'is. So how could you say that you're allowed to water the Beis HaShalachim? And the Gemara says, Amar Abaye. So Abaye is going to answer. Abaye says that this Mishnah that says that you can water the Beis HaShalachim is talking about Bishviz Bizman Hazeh. We're talking about the seventh year Shemitah in our days. We don't have Yodlus. We don't have Yorev Yeshvel Leho. There is a opinion, the opinion of Rebbe. Rebbe says the whole law of Shemitah in nowadays is only midrabanan. So Omar Abayi b'shviz manazeh. Einoch inami, in the time of when there was shviz min haTorah, when there was the Yovel, when there was Rav Yeshua, most of the Yidden were in Israel. Then there was Yovel, then the shviz was min haTorah. Then you would not allow to be watering a Beis HaShalachim, because you would be violating a prohibition of the Torah. But because we're talking about nowadays, and according to the opinion of Rebbe that it's midrabanan, that's okay. B'shvi b'zman hazeh, zok Rashi d'Rabbanan. Shvi is nowadays, not during the time of Rav Yeshua Aleho, is only midrabanan. But Rebbe, that's the opinion of Rebbe, because there is a disagreement whether Shemitah Bizman Hazeh is min haTorah or midrabanan. This Mishnah that has this extra allowance goes according to the Rebbe, who holds The Rabbi says the Omar Duhu Midrabanon. Rabbi says Midrabanon. Aha, once it's Midrabanon, Zokt Rashi Milsa Dipseda Shor Rabbanon. If it's a rabbinic problem, so a mitzvah Midrabanon, the rabbis allow you. The rabbis allow you to do the mitzvah of the Rabbanon. Because if it's a loss, if it would be Minat Torah, of course they can't allow it because you are violating a Torah prohibition. But since the prohibition is only Midrabanan, because it goes according to Rebbe, who says that nowadays the whole prohibition is only Midrabanan. The Gemara quotes now the source. Where do we see that Rebbe says that it's only Midrabanan? So the Tanya, we learned in Abraisa, Rebbe Omer. Rebbe says there's a pasuk in Dvorim, Perik Tezva. The pasuk says V'zeh Dvar Hashmita Shomet. Over there, the pasuk actually talks about loans that are canceled on the 7th year. The pasuk says this is the law of the Shemitah, that if you are owed money, anybody who owes money, you're not allowed to collect because it's Shemitah. It talks about the Shemitah, 7th year cancels the loans. But the Torah uses a little bit of a duplicate language. It says, V'zeh dvar hashmita shomet. This is the matter of Shemitah shomet. Why does it say 2 times Hashmita shomet? So Rashi V'zeh dvar hashmita shomet. Kesiv, it's written Bahashmotas Kesofim, when you cancel out monetary. So Amai Kesiv Trei Zimni Shmita Shomet. It says V'zeh dvar hashmita kobal mashireh. Why do we need it 2 times Shmita Shomet? So even though that the pasuk literally is talking about canceling the loans, but still the fact that it says 2 shmitas is b'shtei shmitas hakosuv medaber. The pasuk is talking about 2 cancellation. Once achas shmitas karko is canceling of the property, meaning canceling the property means the lack of work in the property. The achas shmitas kisofim, and one canceling out the monetary obligation that somebody owes you. The Torah uses the word shmita shomet, even though the literal pasuk is talking about canceling a loan, but the Torah is stuck in over here also about the shmitas karka. Talking about one is about shmitas karka, the achas shmitas kisofim. What does the Torah want to tell us? Bisman sha'ato mishamet karka, during the time that the property is canceled, meaning you can't work, you have to give up your rights to your field because it's Shemitah, the 7th year. You have to make it hefker. At that time, ato mishamet kisofim, that is when the time that you have to cancel monetary obligations as well. But ubizman she'i atom mishamit karka. But if it's in a time in which you do not cancel property, I atom mishamit kesofim, then you don't cancel monetary either. The Torah is trying to tell you that the cancellation, the not working, not canceling the loans only applies when you have to cancel the property. When you don't have to cancel the property, then the money is not canceled either. In other words, the 2 shmitas Shemitah basically has two separate laws. One law applies to the field, that you have to give up the rights to the field. The other law applies to giving up your loans. And the Torah puts them both together by hinting here, Shemitah Shomit, to tell you that they all apply at the same time. When there is Shemitah's Karka, you're not allowed to own the property, you have to give up the ownership. That's when you have to cancel the loan. But in a time when you don't have to give up the property, then you don't have to cancel the loan. What would be the time that you don't have to give up the property? What period is that? So that must mean that in nowadays there is no Shemitah's Karka. If the canceling of the property is always, then it doesn't follow then the idea that they're both the same. Anyways, they're the same. There's no such a time. Look at Rashi. Bisman shiato mishamet karka chulu. It says when you don't cancel property, miklal. So from this we can derive the ikazman, the loy mishamet karka. There is a time that karka does not. And we're saying when karka does not cancel, then money does not cancel. So what time would that be? Bisman hazeh. And nowadays, so that's the source that Rebbe says that in nowadays there is no Shemitah's Karka, but it's only Midrabanan. And basically, according to Rebbe, we're learning over here, the Rebbe statement in the Braisa, that just like there's no canceling of the property, there's no canceling of the loan either. Bisman hazeh, when there's no canceling of the property, because bisman hazeh, it's midrabon, it's not minatur. That's how Abaye answers. Question was, why are you allowed to water on Shviz, the field, which is a Beis HaShalachim, because it needs, how could you do that? And the answer is, we're talking about nowadays when the whole prohibition is only midrabanan, and according to Rebbe, it's only midrabanan. Rava gives another answer. He says, no, afilu teima rabbanan. Even if our Mishnah goes according to the Rabbanan, we say it's min haTorah. He says there is no prohibition for watering the on a shviz. Let's look inside. Even if our Mishnah goes according to the Rabbanan that disagree on Rebbe, the Amri, the Shviz, Bisman I said they say that Shviz, 70 an hour time, is from the Torah. Still, it's okay to water the Beis HaShalachim because Avos Osor Rachmana, the father, the main category of Malachas, the Torah prohibit. If you will plow or you will sow, those are considered the Avos Malachas, the main category of Malachas, of the 39 Malachas. But if you do a job like watering, which is a derivative, it may be plowing, it may be sowing, that's not prohibited on Shviz. Avos Malachas, also Rachmana b'Shviz, main category of Malachas, the Torah has prohibited on Shviz. Let's turn the page. To Gimel Amud Aleph. Tuldes, but when we talk about derivatives, over there, the Torah did not prohibit it. So he says, while it is asur to plow, and it is asur to sow, to cut, to sow, but to water, which is a derivative, the Torah didn't ask it. Tuldis. So Rashi, what is tuldis? Can go mashkes roib. Like, for example, watering the Zraim, the sea, this zone. Shalohoye ben Mishkan, that was in the Mishkan. Loi Asar Achmona, Torah did not prohibit it. The Ksiv, because the pasuk says, Bashona Hashviz Shabbos Shabboson. We're going to learn how Yeh La'aretz. Pasuk says in Vayikra Chafei, on the 7th year, it should be a rest for the land. And the pasuk says, Sotcha loy sizra, don't sow your field. And the pasuk continues, V'charmecha loy sizber, and don't prune your vine. So, Migdi, Zmira B'chlal Zriya. When you prune, that's part of sowing. If you prune, because when you prune, you make it grow. Looks at Rashi. Zimur b'chlal ziriya, shedarkei shel zoymer litzmuchi peri kizireya. That's the nature. When you prune, that makes the fruit grow, just like when you're sowing. By removing the pruning it, you're helping it grow. And Betsira ba'anovim, Betsira means you're taking down the grapes, is equal to Ketsira b'tvua. That is the same as cutting. When the pasuk says b'chorish b'kosir tishbei, cut means grain with the sickle. When you cut it, that's Ketsira. But when you pick off the grape, they're called boitzer. And b'tzira ba'anovim, b'tzira ba'anovim. O Ketsira av melochehi v'perek v'al. And the Torah counts cutting as a main category of melacha. When it comes to Shabbos, when you cut, that's an av melacha, as that's a main category of melacha, as the Gemara brings down in Perek Godel Shabbos, that in Gimel Amud Aleph. And Rashi just says b'tzira b'chlal k'tzira. When we talk about b'tzira, which is removing the grapes from the tree, is part included in cutting. When we say that cutting is prohibited, that includes also removing the grapes, because that's doing basically the shneim choitchim. Both of them are cutting. That's the melacha of cutting down. And Rashi types again, zimur. What is the pruning? Mechatech anofim yeveshim shel gefen. You cutting down the dried out branches of the vine. That means pruning. So basically, pruning would be part of sowing. And also, ubetzira b'chlal kitzira. And when you remove the grapes, that's just like cutting grain. So lemai hilchaso kasvinhu Rab Chamona. So for what purpose did the Torah write it? See, the Torah says sotcho loy sizra, right? And then it says the karmecho loy sizmar. Don't prune. Okay? In the next pasuk it says, "A sviach kitzircha loy siktzor." So pruning is part of the loy siktzor, and also when it says in v'niverecha loy siftzor, not to remove them, that's also included already, like inside. Mirdi. Zemira beklal ziria. Pruning is part of sowing. So if you say don't sow, we know you're not allowed to prune. Ubitzira, bechlal kitzira, and taking the grapes off is part of cutting. So lemai hilchsa kasvinu rachmona. So why does the Torah have to write both pruning and also bitzira? Why does the Torah have to write it? Doesn't have to write because leisizmer, because it says already leisizro. Sizro and sizmer are basically doing the same thing, and the same thing here. If you're saying like siktzer, it doesn't have to say nizerecha leisivtzer because you're doing the same thing. So why did the Torah write it? The memra to tell you the hani tuldas mi chayiv. Only on these, to tell you that this is only on these derivatives you will be chayiv. But other tuldas loy mechayiv. You're not chayiv. Only if you prune and only if you remove the grapes, which is a tulda, then you'll be chayiv. But other ones, you are not mechayiv. And pouring water is a tulda, which is not those two tuldas the Torah mentioned, and therefore that's only midrabanan on shvis, and therefore in a beis hashalochim the chachamim allowed you because it's only midrabanan. Right, the Gemara, Eloi, and no. So you're trying to say to me that there is no obligation, there is no problem with watering in the Torah, with watering the field. But Vatanya, what we learned in another brayso, from the same pasuk, it says Sadcha loy sizra, v'charmecha loy sizmer. So we learn Engli Elo Zirua Vizimur. From this one, we know you can't sow and you can't prune. Minayin lenichush uli idur. How do we know that nichush? And nichush, I think before we said that nichush is when you put the water in. That's called nichush, I believe. You just check it out and see if that's what it said before. Nichush. Menachesh. No, Rashi says nichush is tearing out bad grass from the good grass. Okay, so that's the same. That nichush is similar to pruning. That's removing the bad grass. So minayin, how do we know lenichush for removing the bad grass? Uli idur. What is idur? Idur means, Rashi says, shechoifer tachas hagefanim l'refuye ar'o. He digs under the vines to soften the earth. That's idur. Uli kisuach. I thought that's the nichush. I said kisuach. Okay, so Rashi is going to explain. Ba'asabim. Kisuach means by grass. That you cut the bad from the good. So what is the difference between nichush and kisuach? Veloy hainu nichush. That's not nichush. Nichush means the ma'aker ha'ikri min hakarka. Over there, you take out the roots from the bad ones from the ground. That's called nichush. The lozeh, but for kisuach, ain't oikerim. You don't tear it out. You just cut on the top. So how do you know these are all not avos? They're all tuldos. How do you know you're not allowed to do them? Talmud loymar sotcho loy karamechol loy. The pasuk is sotcho loy sizra kilay mekarmechol loys. Why does the Torah write in such a way? Rashi explained. Talmud loymar sotcho loy karamechol loy. Mid loy kisiv loy sizra sotcho. Since it doesn't say in a direct way, don't sow your field, don't prune your orchard, Ella, but rather it says it. It just says, so it's mashma, it appears all kinds of work. Don't do any work. Mid like seed lois again. Mid like seed. Ella, but rather it's written. Sodcha loy sizmer karmach loy sizmer is mashma sodcha loy karmach loy adonai, which means loy kol melocha shebesodcha. Veloy kol melocha shebekarmecha. Not all, no work, and no work in the field. They're not allowed to. None of these workers are allowed in the field. Loy kol melocha shebesodcha, veloy kol melocha shebekarmecha. Menayin she mekarsimin. How do we know you're not allowed to be mekarsim? Mekarsim is a Rashi. Hainu zimur. That's pruning. Elo she kirsum shaykh bilonis. Kirsum applies to trees. Ve'im mezardin. Mezardin means mechatech hanofim yeveshim velachim. He cuts down the dry and moist branches. Lefi sheyesh li'ilon hanofim yesu medai. There's too many branches for the tree. That's called mizardin. The ein mefasgin bi'ilon. And you're not allowed to support a tree. Rashi says mefasgin soivchin eilon shuran and yoser midai. A tree which is too fresh and not able to stabilize, you don't support it. So how do we know Talmud Leimer again? Sodcha loy, karmecha loy. Loy kol melacha shebesodcha, but loy kol melacha shebekarmecha. Not any work in the field, not any fruit in the orchard. Menayin shem mezablim. Where do we know that you're not allowed to put the composite and to make it grow, the manure to help it grow? Manichim zevel b'korei ilan. They would put the zevel in the tree, the main part of the tree. Ve'ein mefarkin, and you're not allowed to take apart. That's the avonim shalikra ilam. Those are stones that are on the main of the tree. Ve'ein ma'afkin, not allowed to dust up, which means ma'afkin means sheshoroshim nidim. Their roots are visible and you cover it with dust. and you're not allowed to smoke up the tree. Rashi says, why they smoke up the tree? Ma'ashnim. Oisin oshon tachas ha'ilon. You put a smoke under the tree, kidei sheinoshro ha'teloyim she'olov, so that the worms should fall down, the worms that are on the tree. You're not allowed to do that either. All work in the field, no. And all field, all work in the orchard, no. Zog die Gemara, maybe you might think that the person should not dig under the olives. That's same as idur. Eloshi idur begefanim, bekishkush bezeidim. Idur is by the vines, and kish bezeidim. Lo yikashkes tachas ha'zeisim, lo yade tachas ha'kpanim. Below yimale nekoim mayim, and not to fill cracks with water. Below yasu ugyes legefanim, and not to make these little pools of water. He digs, Rashi's ugyes, choifer gumo tachas hagefen litan memayim. You dig a hole under the vine and you put water in there. So you're not a. So maybe you would think you're not allowed to do this also. Talmud Loimar. So the Torah says, don't sow your field. Why? Zriya b'chlal hoiso. Zriya was already included. We knew that we're not allowed to sow because Zriya b'chlal hoiso b'shon hashviz Shabbos Shabbos and Gomer. So since it's resting, you know that you're not allowed to sow. Why does the Torah have to say lo yisro? V'lo mayotzo. So how come it came out to teach on its own, to say to you that you can't sow? Lahakish eileho loimerloch. It is to equate to her to tell you that ma zriya miyuchedes avodo shebesoda v'shebikerem. Just like sowing is especially a work that's in the field and the orchard. Av kol shehi avoda shebesoda v'kerem. Also, all kinds of work which is in the field and the orchard, which is what? Av kol avoda shebesoda v'kerem. So K'rashki going hani kol hani proti. All things that we mentioned before that you're not allowed to do. Yotzo kishkush v'idur. That does not apply to a field and an orchard, because these things only apply to the vine. You know what? Let's leave it over here. I'm kind of also a little tired over here, barely keeping up speed. Let's leave it over here. I'm just trying to find a spot to leave it here. Let's go back in the middle of the Braisa by Yochel Lo Yikashkish. We'll start over here in Mitzvah Hashem next time. Then we'll do that. Okay, I don't know what happened. We lost him in the middle, but